Hey gang, it's Dr. Fred here with Elite, and I'm very excited to introduce to you, if you haven't heard of him, which you will very shortly, Dr. Josiah Fitzsimons. We met in UAC, the Ultimate Achievers Club, and geez, when we talked the first time, and you realize that we have the same sole purpose, right? And what's
Yeah,
so different about Elite, man? Everybody wants to market, and what do we want to do? We want to create a legacy that affects generations, the children born 3, 4 generations from today, when we're long gone, kicking back on the rocking chair like my Italian grandfather after being at the bakery all day, with my grandmother yelling Italian in the background, like, let me sleep. Right? The world's going to be different. And so you came out of school. I mean, you're going to tell your story. But what we're going to do is talk about scaling. You came out of school in 4 years, scaled to $5.5 million, saw 1,300 people a week. And I know this is a long introduction, but when you see somebody that sees 1,300 a week, they're driven by their spiritual connection. They come in, you come in, and you're here to serve God. Like, yes, you have the title of doctor, but you want to make an impact. You're God's servant. You talk about the principle, and then you develop the whole business system because and I always say your spirit builds your practice. The principle builds the practice, and then the systems handle the flow, and then you manage the business, and you manage to do a phenomenal job. And after that long introduction, thanks for being here, man. This is going to be a game changer.
yeah,
So make sure you stay for the whole thing, even if you're watching the recording.
absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Dr. Fred. I appreciate it. And yeah, like you said, first time we talked, I was like, "God, this is my guy." I just feel like we're so aligned on who we are, what we believe in, what is our faith, what is our purpose, how we are driven. And so, yeah, my story, going back to growing up, I grew up very humble beginnings. My dad waits tables at an Italian restaurant. He still does. He waited tables at Red Lobster when I grew up. Now he's been waiting at just a local Italian restaurant. My mom delivers newspapers. I started in third grade. I started waking up at 2:30 a.m. every morning, and I delivered newspapers to help my family. I'd oftentimes help pay for bills growing up with the money I made delivering newspapers. I bought my own bike. I bought my own clothes, all that type of stuff growing up. The nicest car we ever had growing up was $500. And so I knew if I wanted to get to the next level, it was on me. It was on my own shoulders. I'm one of 9 kids. I had to eat my food as fast as humanly possible to get seconds. And
Good
so
thing
that's
your dad worked at a restaurant.
yeah. So I mean that's just how I grew up. Was just I had to compete. I had to be driven on myself, and so I realized very quickly I was like, man, to get to the next level, this is on me. What do I got to do? How do I get to the next level? And so that's where I became very dedicated early on, and I grew up with that work ethic of working. I mean, literally in third grade, I'd go to my third grade class, and my teacher was like, "What did you do this?" And I literally had already worked for 4 hours before I went
Yeah.
to the third grade, and my teachers were like appalled. And so they couldn't believe it. And so that's really how I got my work ethic. And then in high school, I was like, man, if I want to get to the next level, I got to figure out a way to get a scholarship. And I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at sports. If I put in the time, effort, and energy, maybe I get a scholarship. And I was thankful to I started doing 2-a-days, working out twice a day, starting my sophomore year of high school to try and get a scholarship for football. I ended up getting a full ride, South Dakota State for football. And when I got there, at that time, I thought medical school is the pinnacle of society. That's what my grandma told me, right? And then I ended up getting hurt, went to this local chiropractor. He's like, you can be an entrepreneur and a doctor. And I was like, what's an entrepreneur? I don't even know what that word means, And so then he's painted this big picture. And I was like, well, I love the more holistic approach, the natural approach. My dad was always super huge in nutrition, one of the smartest people, just didn't have the drive. And so that's how I changed gears, went to chiropractic school, and I realized very quickly they're not teaching anything about business and entrepreneurship. And so that's where I went on this quest while I was still a student to say, how can I learn how to run a successful business immediately after I graduate? Long story short, I ended up just looking up doctors, finding doctors that I could help. A lot of doctors need help with screenings. So my third trimester in school, one doctor flew me all the way from Palmer to Wenatchee, Washington on the red eye, got in, literally landed in Seattle at 11 p.m., went to Wenatchee, too cloudy, flew around, came back to Seattle at 1 a.m., and ended up renting a van with 5 strangers, drove through the night, through the hills and the mountains, got to this doctor's office at 6:45 a.m. and went to a screening form at 9 a.m. and I ended up signing up 99 people in 2 days, all paid appointments, booked them out. And he's like, how did you do that? And I was like, I figured out what's their problem. What do they want to do about it? How's it affecting their life? And, hey, make an appointment. It's only $20 or whatever it was. And so then he told all of his friends, and I ended up going to over 50 different offices by the time I graduated school, all paid for by all these doctors for me to just come out and do screenings. And so that's kind of how I learned all the basics of fundamentals of communication. And so before I opened my own office, just 4 months after graduating, I already had 400 prepaid appointments. And then, like Dr. Fred said, yeah, I did over $1 million my first year, over 2 million next year. Third year open was COVID, and then in our fourth year open, we're over $5.5 million. And so, what I really want to talk to you guys tonight, is just about the basic fundamentals of what allowed me to scale and get to that next level. And you can see my shirt, and that's because as I've grown over the years, doctors have always been like, hey, how did you do this? Can you tell me? Can you help me? And I'm never the person, I've never wanted to be a coach. I don't want to be a coach. That's not why I'm partnering with Dr. Fred here, because people need coaches, but that's just not my personality. I'm much more analytical, numbers driven. And so I started a company called Lucro where we do bookkeeping for doctors. So you can get immediate feedback every single month of what are my numbers and what is the next best action step that I should take to scale and to go to the next level. Because if you don't have an understanding of your financials, you don't know business. And so that's why I very quickly learned, as I went to these next levels, that if you want to build a house, you need a strong foundation, and you got to pour the concrete, you got to lay the foundation, then you can scale the framing and the drywall. You can go into all the small details, but if you don't have the solid foundation, nothing else matters. And that's really what I found is the foundation of a key business is the financial aspect and just understanding what to do. But then that's just the basic, right? Then you got to go to the next level. Then you got to go into marketing, and you got to go into sales, and you got to go into team and operations and systems and day one, day two, and retention and adjusting and all that other stuff. And that's what elite coaching is so fantastic at, coaching and teaching and help you go to that next level. And so what we want to do is just help you with that foundation of understanding where are my numbers at? What do I do based on these numbers? Who do I need to talk to? How do I go to the next level? So that's really what I want to talk about tonight. And the biggest thing, whenever I talk to anybody, I always say, don't take notes. When I'm talking, just focus in, listen. We'll post a link at the end of the call that you can get a download of the outline of everything I'm talking about. Whenever I talk, I always say, how can you take immediate action? I talk to a lot of my friends at chiropractors, right? We're smart, we're doctors. A lot of us are very school oriented, learning oriented. And so I know a lot of doctors that read a lot of books, but they take little action. And that's the biggest thing I would recommend is read less books, take more action. And that's really, if anything you take away from the call tonight would be what action steps can I immediately take and apply in my practice tomorrow, next week, as soon as possible. So,
well, and one thing I would love you to enlighten them on, because you don't get to a volume like that without seeing families and without wanting to make an impact and without chiropractic lifestyle. So where did you get your principle?
Yeah, that really came first semester at trimester at Palmer, CNS, first class, 7 a.m. And they say, hey, brain and spinal cord control and coordinate your entire body. This is how your body works. And I was like, well, that's how God made your body, is your central nervous system communicating throughout the rest of your body to heal from the inside out. And that was when I had that epiphany that chiropractors is God's profession. And that's really, something that from me and my growing up, my faith, my background, that's how I met my wife, high school sweethearts, met in church growing up, youth group. And that really resonated with me, and that really helped take my purpose to the next level, because I realized what we do on a daily basis really, really unlock people's potential to live their life at their fullest, to live to their full God-given potential. And so that's really what ignited me, is just that purpose that we can have and the impact that we can have on families, on children, no matter what age. People are not living at their full God-given potential, and how we can really unleash the power of the nervous system for their bodies to heal and then reach their full optimization, whether that be as a mother, as a spouse, as a friend, as a grandmother, whatever it may be.
Well, and I want to make a comment, because there are certainly chiropractors that are very good business people, and they set up great businesses, offer multiple services, do all this stuff. And then you see, and they may make a lot of money per visit. But when you see people that see volume, that want to make an impact in generations, that want to make the world different, they're not just, you can have a great business that offers products and services. And I've talked to these and I've coached guys that have, they call me because they have multi-millions of dollars. And then you run into the people. And so those guys, they get out of practice, they retire, they do whatever, and they have a great life for their family. And then you run into people that work for God. So, there's a Psalm 139:16 said, "You saw my days before they were formed." I'm paraphrasing, right? So imagine, you're sitting there in the spirit world and you're hanging out with God and you're like, and you're seeing a movie trailer of your life. I'm going to be a chiropractor. What's that mean? I'm going to be climbing uphill all the time. I want to swim upstream. I want to teach something, healthcare, that nobody has any idea about. And that looks like fun. And then I want to go through all these challenges and I want to train all, and I want to own my own business, not to mention the parents you might have been raised with. Well, I went through abuse and my dad was an alcoholic and he beat the shit out of me when I was young, and so your personality might not choose what your soul chose. But when you believe, this is why I'm here on this physical plane. I'm creating the likeness and image of God, universal intelligence. This is innate intelligence. And when I look at a patient, I see their spirit in their physical body. Now, they may come to you thinking it's back pain, neck pain, headaches, but what you see is they're subluxated. And your job is to get them unsubluxated and how to live that way so they can fulfill their God-given purpose too. Now, when that becomes your purpose, that's how you make impact on generations. That's how people come because they want to be healed, right? And the old DE one-liner, man, I move the bone, God does the healing.
Yeah.
So it's like, we don't have to think about it. I know I need to friggin' move the bone, fix the spine. God's going to heal them. And whatever you have is going away, and tell everybody you know. And that's how you build a big practice.
Heck yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that was the connection for me was, like I said, yeah, of understanding the basic fundamentals of nervous system, focus, and that's how your body works. And that's how you progress to the next level, is your body heal the way it's designed to. And so really what I want to talk about tonight is kind of the top 3 overall mindsets, because first and foremost, Dr. Fred hit it spot on. You have to have purpose. You have to be driven. You have to have, a mission that you are on first and foremost, because otherwise, if you don't have a why, if you don't know what your why is, then when times get tough, when you get up against the wall, when you have difficult patients, when you have difficult months, when you have difficult team members, whatever it may be, trials and tribulations are going to come. If you don't have a purpose that drives you to push through those, you might fold, you might not make it, you might not get to that next level that you could achieve, that you could reach your full potential if you have the purpose and the why behind it. And so really the biggest thing for me is understanding then, okay, I got the purpose, I got the why, what next? What are the action steps? How do I get to the next level? And so for me, whenever people have reached out to me, I've always boiled it down to top 3 things. I've said 3 ways that I feel like I've thought about things from a different perspective that allowed me to scale over $5 million in such a short period of time, was really my 3 ways that I thought about things differently. And that, it was one of the biggest takeaways I had a number of years ago, is I had a friend who knew a billionaire. And I said, hey, ask this guy, what separates a billionaire compared to everyone else? And you know what he said is the number 1 thing he said is mindset. He says, why billionaires do things is more important than what they do.
Absolutely.
Why you do things is more important than what you do. And so if you have that framework, then you can go to the next level. And I have 3 kids. I got an 8-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 6-month-old, right? And I'm not gonna have 9 like I was, maybe 1 more. And so, that's the biggest thing I'm trying to instill in my kids, is how to think. Because if I just give them the answer and say, hey, do this, well, then every time they have run into a problem, they're going to come to me. Well, eventually I'm not always going to be there, right? But if I can instill in them what is the framework of evaluating a situation? Here's my faith, here's my core values, here's my ethics, here's my past experience, here's my observed experience, and combine those, then I'm going to understand and I can make the decisions on my own. And so that's really the framework that I want to talk about tonight, is the framework of how to think about the different areas of your business.
Hey, can I make a comment about this? Because we're going to talk about team and staff meetings and pre-shift hulls and all that. And you just hit it on the head, man, because that's the key. And that's what we do. What you're going to talk about that's different and what we teach in Elite. Like we say, we don't teach patients what to think, we teach them how to think. Like patient education is teaching them what to think. And that's why they go home and they call back, oh, I'm going to go to my sister's MD. Same thing with your team. When you teach your team how to think,
Yeah.
then they do it on their own. They take responsibility and they run it for you. So yeah, you don't see that a lot in the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. So your mindset is really your why, right? Behind what you do. You know, like I said, asking someone what they do isn't important. Asking someone why they do is really what matters. So the biggest things I want to talk about tonight are three things: marketing, mindset around hiring and staff, and then also mindset around structure. And structure is what I believe is one of the biggest missing links in our profession, that a lot of doctors don't have the proper framework. But a lot of people have systems, day ones, day twos, you know, new patient orientations, doctor's reports, whatever it might be, initial processes, but they don't have the structure of scaling to the next level and removing themselves from the bottleneck. Because most clinics are personality driven, they're doctor driven. If the doctor's not there, the office is closed. If the doctor's not there, the clinic doesn't perform. The owner is the CEO, they're wearing the marketing hat, they're wearing the hiring hat, they're wearing all the hats, right? And so if they're not there, then things aren't performing the way they are. But first one I want to talk about is marketing, because everyone's like, well, how did you schedule 400 prepaid appointments before your first day open, right? And so the biggest thing I want to talk about marketing is more of just a mind shift of how you think about marketing. And so the easiest way I've kind of boiled it down over the years is think about if you invest in the stock market, for example. If you put $1,000 in the stock market and at the end of the year, that $1,000 turns into $1,500, you'd be like, holy cow, that was amazing. I got 50% returns in that year. Well, think about it. If you could do that every single year for the next 50 years, I mean, you would be considered probably the smartest investor of all time. You would be better than Warren Buffett if you could get 50% return on your money in the stock market every single year, right? And so all the time, doctors, you know, ask me and say, well, how much did I spend on marketing? Well, tell me what you're doing right now. Oh, last month I spent $1,000, you know, but I only got 2 patients. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, blah, blah, blah. Well, what's the lifetime value of your patients, right? And so that's what doctors miss, is they understand what is the lifetime value of their patient, not only of that one person, but what if you get their spouse under care, if you get their daughter, their son under care, what if you get their friends under care? And most doctors' lifetime value of patients, 2,000 is like, I think the bare minimum that most, you know, would be from a lifetime value perspective. You're talking about $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 maybe plus, you know, of that care from that one individual, from the referrals that you generate from that person that you can generate. And so I actually have an entire lifetime value calculator. If you want that, just put like LTV in the chat. Or I can send it to Dr. Fred. I have a whole spreadsheet that actually calculates lifetime value of a customer. What's the average lifetime value of a customer? And then you can work backwards and figure out, okay, now that I know a client is worth this much, I can actually spend this much per patient and still be profitable. So that example, like I said, you spend $1,000, worst case scenario, a patient's worth 2,000, you made 4,000 on your 1,000, you made 400% versus the amazing best stock investor of all time making 50%.
Well, and let's look at his first mindset on marketing. It's not the $1,000. He gets one person, and because he's principled and he wants to create a legacy, he already knows the wife's coming in. He already knows this before the patient comes in. He's not trying to create a patient. He's changing their health care.
Exactly.
And there you go, right? That's the fuel for the system, even in marketing.
Yeah, and then I was at this conference recently, and I spoke at the conference, and one of the doctors came in and he goes, hey man, doc, I'm getting 7 times return on my marketing spend right now. What should I do? And I said, well, if you put a dollar into a vending machine and it gives you out $7, what do you think you should do? Well, he's like, I don't know, put another dollar in. And I'm like, no,
about 100.
Put in as many dollars as you possibly can, you know, until you can't hold any more money that's coming out, right? And then you need to hire staff, you know, or you need to increase hours, or you need to have a bigger space, or you need to get a bigger van, you know, to carry all the money that's coming out of the vending machine. So that's the whole concept I like to talk about with marketing is in our profession, with the amazing quality of care that we have, chiropractic works. I mean, what other profession in the world can you go to almost any provider and get results, whether you do all sorts of different techniques I mean, I think the quality of care that we can provide to impact someone's life in such a small frame of time as a service done by hands, I mean, it's just unbelievable. There's nothing like what we provide in the world. There's no profession that can provide what we can provide. And so if you can think about it from that frame of mind, okay, of the quality of care that you're giving, and if you're getting, let's just say 3x, 4x on your dollars, even if you're only getting 2x, even if you're getting 1.5x, right? You're making more than you're putting in. So really the next thing that you're saying is, well, how many new patient slots do I have in my schedule? And so that's why exercise I go through all the time with doctors, say, hey, how many new patients can you see a week? Okay, I can see 10 new patients a week. All right, well, your rent isn't going to change whether you have 10 new patients on the schedule or you have 5 new patients on the schedule. Most likely your staff isn't going to change whether you have 10 people on the schedule or you have 5 people on the schedule, right? Your internet bill is not going to change. Your utility bill is not going to change. All these variables are fixed expenses, right? So if you don't maximize your schedule, then you're limiting your profitability by not maximizing your schedule. So that's why I talk to doctors all the time is if you're getting more than you're spending, then you need to maximize your overall schedule being 100% full. And once you maximize that, then you say, okay, now do I need to add more hours? Do I need to increase staff? Most doctors are open, what, 2.5, 3.5 days a week, right? And so you don't have to work more hours, but that's the whole thing is finding team members, which I'm going to go to next, is to get team members to help you go to that next level. But you really, first and foremost, you're most likely going to maximize people. People are going to be your #1 bottleneck, okay, to scaling and getting to the next level. And so that's kind of the next topic that I want to talk about is team. And as Dr. Fred, you know, that's
everything.
It's
the
everything.
Foundation of everything you do.
Yeah, exactly. And so I like to say team is by far and away the #1 bottleneck. Either you don't have enough people or you don't have good enough people. And so what is team? Team is under an umbrella of what's called HR. What does HR stand for? HR stands for human resources. What are all the top resources in the world? Gold, diamonds, oil, right? That's what you think of when you think of world resources. But by far and away, the most valuable, the most important resource in the entire world is humans, high quality humans. Humans are by far our #1 resource, and we can't forget that because so oftentimes we want to view team members as liabilities. We want to view them as expenses, but we need to change our mindset that team members are assets. Okay, they're income producing assets. They're not bank draining liabilities. And so if you have that frame of mind, then you're going to invest more into team. You're going to invest into training. You're going to invest into having higher quality people, right? Because let's just say, the difference between, let's just say you could hire someone in your area, depending on where you are in the country, in my area, we could get a very high quality team member for $22 an hour. But $18 an hour is going to get us not very good employee, right? So $4 more an hour, right? Let's just say it's going to be about $8,000 more a year. Let's go back to what we talked about earlier. This is why it's so important to know the lifetime value of your clients. Most doctors I work with, typically the lowest lifetime value of any of their clients is typically $2,000 to $4,000. Let's just say it's $2,000, right? Do you think that one team member, okay, over the course of an entire year working 2,080 hours a year isn't going to impact 4 more people to get under care or stay under care if you go from a C player, to an absolute A player by paying $4 more per hour? And so many doctors want to find what's the lowest paid staff that I can bring in. How can I not pay my staff more? How can, I continue to try and get the most out of them, but not, continue to grow with them? But if you want go-getters, if you think you're a go-getter and you want to get to the next level, you're not going to be satisfied with where you're at, and you want to get to the next level. You want to scale. You want to grow as an individual, as a professional, right? And so that's a big part of our training with our team is that we actually have a sit-down meeting with them after their initial 60 days. We say, what are your personal, professional, and financial goals for the next 1, 3, and 5 years? We call them their PPF goals. We have a meeting with them, say, hey, what do you want to accomplish as an individual in the next 1, 3, and 5 years, personally, professionally, and financially? And every single week, we have one-on-one meetings with each team members, and we report back to that, say, hey, how are you progressed? You said you wanted to finish your basement. You said you wanted to pay off your student loans. You said you wanted to buy a car. You said you wanted to get engaged. You said you wanted to increase your pay. You said you wanted to do X, Y, and Z. We need to figure out what is our team members' why, right? On the front end, we said, what's our purpose? What's our why? What drives us? We need to figure that exact same thing out for our team members. And if our team members are driven by purpose, if our team members, have a why that they can attach to, and they can feel that our company, your business, is a vehicle for them to accomplish their ultimate purpose, their ultimate why, how much more bought in are they going to be to go to the next level? Right? And so that's where I always talk about investing in your teams, paying better for people, hiring ahead of need. Don't wait until your team members are burned out to find a new team members. We close our whole office down every single Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every single week just to do team meetings and team trainings. We literally train from 12 o'clock to 4 p.m. every single Tuesday, and we drill. We do one-on-ones, we do role playing, we do all the things to take our team members to the next level. Because one of my favorite sayings, what happens if you don't train your team member? What happens if you train your team members and they leave? What happens if you don't train your team members and they stay? Right? And so, that's a big part of what we do, is trying to elevate our team members, have them grow with us, have them be a part of our growth, have them be a part of our vision, right? And so that comes into culture and core values. If you don't have company core values, you can go to my clinic. My clinic is Vero Health Center. You can go to verohealthcenter.com. You can see what our core values are. And so I would really, implore you to come up with, what are your core values? What do you stand for? What is your purpose? What is your vision? What is your mission? And how can you align team members and find people that are aligned with your vision, mission from the very beginning? But then once you get them, you got to retain them, Go ahead.
Absolutely. So let me back up. I know you pause, and I'm sitting there getting text people, hey, where's the email link? So I'm sitting there like, come on, guys, check your email. So it's going back to what you said when you're looking at their goals, and that's something that I always tell doctors. Your goal should, because you're making such an impact and you're scaling and you're building, that every team member should become financially independent. Because when you're providing something so amazing, you got them on a bonus system, they're motivated, you're paying them more than where they could, like what you said, they could get somewhere else. Full-time people get insurance, like you do the whole deal, man. And they're committed, they're on purpose, and you create a quality person.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, you want vacations, the thing is, they want time off. I would say, hey, don't ask me, ask the other team members that are going to have to do your job when you're gone. So there's always team unity. Someone wants time off, somebody else has got to do your job. So ask that person if you can have time off. Don't come to me.
I love it. Yeah, ownership, right? I mean, one of the things
Yeah,
we do,
exactly, man. Accountability and unity. Team unity is
yeah,
everything.
and that's what I'm going to talk a little about, is kind of giving people accountability for KPIs and giving people accountability for what they're in charge of, so that they can prove their value to you. But I really, at the end of the day, as a CEO of a business, your number one job really is employee retention. And how can you provide an incredible employee atmosphere and have employee engagement so that people feel part of this culture? And so some of the small things that we do is, when their very first day, we have what we call a favorites sheet. And we say, what's your favorite drink? What's your favorite sports team? What's your favorite place to get gift card? How do you like to be rewarded? How do you like to be communicated to? What's your favorite candy? What's your favorite cake? What's your favorite smell? All these things that then when it comes to their birthday, we can give them an individualized birthday gift. When it comes to a reward, we can give them an individualized reward, right? And so big part of that is then, allowing them to be a part of the journey, part of the success. Another big part that we talk about a lot is when you're trying to grow, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 team members to scaling. Like Dr. Fred said, we got up over $5.5 million in 1,800 square feet. We had 34 team members in 1,800 square feet. We literally converted a closet into an extra computer. We broke the city code. You don't tell my city. And we turned a bathroom into another exam room. We turned a kitchen into 3 more computers in that office, just to keep scaling in that single location. And so what you really need to do is you need to start advancing your team. And so a lot of people have chiropractic assistants that kind of do the front desk, they do back office, they do, some exams, they do a little bit of everything. But as you keep going, you need to figure out, what are your team members passionate about? What do they love to do? What are they great at? And start transitioning team members more to what is their ideal skill set, right? The person who's great at the front desk isn't going to be the best person in the back office auditing accounts. The person who's great one-on-one with team members might not be the life of the front desk, multitasking in front of everybody else. And so figuring out, what are your strengths of your team members? How can you dial in to those individual strengths and empower them so that they can be fulfillment of their why, their core values, but then they also can love what they do every day, because that's always been my mantra, is I would never want to work a day in my life because I love what I do every single day. So if you can really have that same mindset of how can I create that same culture, atmosphere, and environment for my team, right? So team is huge, can't be understated. Number one bottleneck you're ever going to have is not enough team member or not good enough team members. The third mindset I really want to dive into tonight, the final one, is what I call structural mindsets, is the overall thought process of how you view the structure of your business. Like I talked about earlier, everyone has very, very good understandings in chiropractic of systems, but they don't really have good understanding of structure. And once you figure out structure, you can run a million things in your life. And so just as a framework, like I said, married, I got 3 kids, right? Not only that, I have 2 farms. I have over 70 Airbnbs. I have a 4,000 head cattle feedlot. I have a hotel, okay, that I converted into a 35 unit multifamily. I have a heavy equipment leasing company. I have a manure spreader, tractors. I have a warehouse. I have over 500,000 square feet of commercial space. I was like, how do you do all those things? And it's structure, okay? It's the structure and rhythms that you implement to constantly reevaluate your business. And I actually learned this during COVID. So a couple of my family members work in the tech industry, and I was always interested. How do these tech companies come out of nowhere and go from $0 to billion-dollar companies overnight? And what I realized is they do a very fast reassessment every single week to 2 weeks. These companies reevaluate their entire business model, and they say, if we could do one thing in the next 2 weeks, what is going to have the largest singular impact on growing and scaling our company to the next level? And every single 2 weeks, they're open to throwing anything out of the window if it's going to be the next best, most important thing. And so what you want to have is a framework to continually evaluate what's going well, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities, and what are your challenges in all areas of your business, and what is the top key priority that you need to be focused on as an individual, each team member, and then as a company as a whole to scale and grow to the next level. So if you don't already have, what an org chart or an accountability chart and a framework of, hey, here's the positions in the company, here's the primary purposes of each position, here's the skills required for every position within the company, and then here are the KPIs that you need to have for each individual position, then you're not able to go and scale to that next level. And so that's what I would really implore you to do as an action step, from this call. Say, hey, write out all your team members. What is their role? What is their title? What are their top responsibilities? What's their primary purpose every single day that they need to do, have impact that they need to have? And then what are the KPIs that you can measure on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis that can reflect that person's performance, and whether they can be bonused off of it, whether they be raised off of it, or whether they need to be disciplined, or brought back to line if those numbers aren't where they need to be. And so having that structure of a chart, purpose, KPIs, and then structure of accountability, then team members can hold themselves accountable. They know these are my metrics that I need to be. This is what I need to do to accomplish. This is what I need to be an A player. If I get this, I'm a B player. If I only get this, I'm a C player. And team members know what is expected of them, because just like we want to have proper expectations for care for our patients or our practice members, we need to have proper expectations for what is expected for each team member in their role, right? And like I stated earlier, if you're on this call right now, raise your hand if you're the owner, you're the head of sales, you're the head of marketing, you're adjusting patients, you're the head of finance, you're the head of operations. Most doctors are doing all those things. And so that's where you need to do what I like to call a delegate and elevate process. And so figure out what are the things that you love to do, what are the things that you are great at, okay? And then put those in the quadrant, and the bottom other quadrant say, what are the things I'm not great at and I also don't like to do? Put those in that quadrant, and then you're going to have kind of some things that you're great at or you like to do, all right, in those kind of middle quadrants. But figure out what are all the things, get them on a single piece of paper that you're doing, and then you need to go through a process of saying, hey, the things that I'm not great at and I don't like to do, those are the things I need to get off my plate first and foremost. And there's probably somebody in your team that loves auditing accounts. There's probably someone in your team that likes to do a lot of those things that you don't like to do, or maybe you need to find someone to do those things and get to that next level. And then once you have that framework, that structure, then it just comes down to rhythms, right? What we were talking about with me and Dr. Fred before we started the call, all right, is every single morning we do a team huddle. In that team huddle, we go through the schedule, we figure out what are the top priorities, what are the top things that we need to focus on. Every person has roles and responsibilities. We do a team prayer before every single shift. Okay, we break it down sports team style, and then we get going. That's a daily rhythm that we have. Everyone's on the same page. They know who's coming in that day. They know the problem patients. They know the difficult cases. They know the people that need the extra love. They know the people that need to get to the next level, right? You're doing that on a daily basis. Then on a weekly basis, you need to have a meeting of everyone getting on the same page. What are the top things that we need to focus on in the next week? How were our KPIs this last week? What are the top issues that we need to solve? What are the top tasks that we need to accomplish? What are the top changes, that we're implementing? Are we doing a drive? Are we doing a new patient orientation this week? What's the marketing that we have going on? Get everybody on the same page, right? And the same thing from a monthly standpoint. And then a quarterly standpoint, that's when we do that strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges analysis of each department. We say, hey, how is our quality of care, our clinical department? What's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges? That's the marketing department, the sales, the operations, the finance, right? Break your team into those functions, and then continually reevaluating those functions is going to allow you to always stay ahead of the next thing. Because like I talk about with tech companies, they're making these pivots so fast, they're hitting their goals at exponential rates. But so often as doctors, we're trying to do so many things, we lose track of what the focus is. And over months and maybe even years, by the time we realize we're way over in left field, we have to make these massive pivots, change that are very, very difficult and hard to do to get back to the center that you never should have left if you're constantly have a reevaluation process and rhythms to consistently improve. Because that's what I talk to my kids about all the time, is success is taking the consistent action, taking the correct actions with consistency.
Can I comment on that? Coaching people, this has got to be the most basic step, like bottom line foundation cement of the house step. Is so many people don't even have office managers, and that's why you're doing it. You're managing, you're training your team, you're hiring, firing, doing any of that, man. I mean, step one is get an office manager. Whenever I opened a new clinic from zero, the first person I hired was an office manager. And then she hired the team. I would go out, build a practice, get a boatload of people in, and she would build the whole structure. That person would build the whole structure. And then, of course, what are the rhythms, right? You have your staff meetings on Monday. You set your goals. You have your pre-shift huddles. You're using your sheet, or we call it a weekly intention sheet. You're using it as a GPS through the week. You're creating your schedule every day. It's like you set a goal and you're creating your shift for something greater than you have. And that's Albert Einstein, right? Imagination is more powerful than knowledge. You have the systems, we have the action steps. Here's how you create your lifestyle culture. And then you bring unity in the team. And you're going to talk all about that. But when you talk about rhythms, that's it, man. You are on a consistent rhythm that sustains momentum.
Absolutely, absolutely. That one of my favorite stats that I ever heard is if you improve 1% every single day, you'll be 37 times better in a year. 37 times better if you just improve 1% every single day. And so that's really, I think, the overarching framework of whether you need to focus on your team, whether you need to focus on marketing, whether you need to focus on systems, whether you need to focus on communication, sales, team building, retention, right? There's all these different aspects. And I think a lot of doctors kind of get drowned down, and there's so many different things that I need to focus on. You're trying to juggle so many different plates. And what happens is you let the urgent overtake the important. Okay, let me say that again. You let the urgent overtake the importance. And what really mattered, was really going to get the ball moving forward, was really going to drive revenue, was really going to drive your business forward, gets put on the back burner because there's all these little minor urgent things that are biting at your heels that you feel like you have to deal with. And then you never get to those things that actually matter. And so that's why you have to constantly be evaluating those things. And again, that's why it goes back to structure and being able to hand things off to an office manager, being able to hand things off to a team member, right? Because if someone can do your job 80% as well as you can, for way less of a cost than the value that you provide to the company, then that needs to be handed off as soon as possible, because otherwise you're never going to get to the next level. And so whether you want to get to 500,000, million, 2 million, 5 million, wherever you want to get to, at the end of the day, it starts with what is the next most important thing you could do today, tomorrow, the next week that's going to have the single greatest impact, accomplishing that thing, and then continually moving to the next. One of the big books that I always do recommend a lot is a book called Who, Not How. by Dan Sullivan. And that's a great concept of thinking of not, how do I figure something out, is who do I need on my team to help accomplish these tasks?
Absolutely. And when you say, hey, if they can do it 80%, the reality is they could probably do it better than you.
Exactly.
It's just that you think you have to do it.
Yeah.
They could
Yeah.
do it better. Yeah. And so one of the things to talk about, and like the 80-20 rule, what's 20% or the 5% of things that are going to give you 95% of your results.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, those are my big things, like I said, that I want to talk about today. Number one is just understanding basics of financial foundation. And that's really your overarching framework of how you can go to anywhere. Once you have the financial foundation, like I said, that's what we do with Lucro. Then you can go to the next level and evaluating, okay, well, how do I improve my marketing? How do I figure out what my lifetime value is? How do I improve retention? How do I get better team members? How do I train team members better? How do I retain team members? How do I have employee engagement? How do I figure out systems and structure and all those things that you get to the next level? But if you don't have a good overarching foundation of understanding your numbers and understanding your finances, then you're not going to be able to get to the next level. If you allow me to share my screen, Dr. Fred, I can share it real quick.
Yeah.
And kind of just show kind of a framework of how we do that initial evaluation.
There you go.
Perfect. So this is what we do with Lucro. And so what Lucro is, we are a bookkeeping company. Okay. And so for only $450 a month or $375 a month, if you pay annually, we do all your books. We balance them every single week, and then we give you a report by the 10th of every month that looks very similar to this. So we don't do taxes. You still want to use your CPA for taxes. But if someone does, kind of a jack of all trade, taxes, books, we would take just the bookkeeping part, half of it. We tee it all up for taxes for you. But really what I realize is so many doctors only do bookkeeping for taxes. They're 3 months behind, they're way backed up. They get them done just in time for tax season. They have nothing that they can actually do with them because they're so outdated by the time they get them. They can't make financial decisions to grow and scale their company based off of those numbers. And so that's the big shift that we want to change, is to help doctors understand their numbers. And then more importantly, well, now that I know my numbers, what do I do with them? Because even I talk to doctors that know their numbers. They say, well, am I profitable to hire another associate? Can I pay my staff more? Can I buy this equipment? Can I invest more in marketing? Can I buy a building? Can I do this? Can I do this? What are the next things that I actually can do now that I have my numbers? What is a good amount to spend on marketing? How much should my labor or my overheads be? What should my profitability be based on my monthly revenue? And so we have what we've coined the perfect P&L. Based on your monthly revenue, you should have different target numbers. So these numbers or percentages that you see on my screen are going to be individualized based on that office, how they function, how they work, what the dynamics of them and of the office is, and then also what their monthly revenue is. So the way we operate is when we first get started, you meet with my partner who's been the fractional CFO for $100 million companies. People pay him $25,000 a month for fractional consulting and advice. You're going to meet with him, all part of our program, no additional cost. And he does a whole strategic planning session, figure out, well, here's where I am, where do I want to go, how do I scale my team, how do I scale my marketing, how do I get to the next level, and you come with a whole game plan. And then every single month after that, we compare what are your actual numbers compared to your goal or your forecasted that you come up with in that strategic planning session, also compared to that perfect P&L of where you should be based on the style of practice that you operate and your monthly revenue. And then this report is what is generated and emailed to you by the 10th of every single month, okay, of what are the next best action steps that you should look into taking to grow and scale your business to the next level. Because like I talked about, that's the number one thing that I realized to take our company, and tech companies, any company that scales at a very, very rapid pace, they have feedback, consistent feedback loops of what to do, what's the next best, most important thing to grow and scale to the next level. Like I said on here, you might need to look at your day 2 sign-up rates. You might need to evaluate your SOPs. You might need to hire a coach, Elite Coaching. That's why we're on the call, right? Because my company doesn't do any of that. That's why we're partnering with Elite and Dr. Fred, because we can give you the foundational premise of, hey, you should look deeper into this. You should do this. This is what your numbers are saying. Okay, now you need to work with Dr. Fred, and he's going to dive in and give you the exact details of how to improve profitability, how to improve retention, how to retain team members. We can just tell you, you're not doing a good job of this. You're not doing a good job, but this is the primary focus that you need to do. Now you need to dive in deeper. So that's why we're partnering up, because we're the ultimate, partnership of us getting that foundational basement. We're just the concrete. And elite coaching is going to help you with the frame, the siding, the roof, what are you going to put, what door handle are you going to use? What's your sink going to be? All those minor details. That's what makes a beautiful house. That's what makes a beautiful, amazing business, is all the minor details. But at the foundation of all of it is an amazing, concrete, solid foundation. Just like they talk about in the Bible, you can't build your house on sand, right? You got to build it on a solid foundation. And that's what we want to provide with Lucro, is that solid foundation for you to then go to the next level.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, man, this is the cement, and you got to know your numbers and to be able to evaluate them. You know, it's one thing to track them. You know, you definitely have to track them. And then the next thing is, okay, like what you said, what are you going to do? So to be able to look at these numbers, and then people don't understand what those numbers mean, you know, and that's what we go through in Elite. We teach you also, like, he'll get the numbers and we look at the numbers and say, okay, what's the mindset of the patient you're creating at a 40 PVA versus the mindset of a person at an 80 PVA? You know, let's look at your team. First of all, how many referrals is your team getting? And this is one thing that we talked about before we started the recording, Josiah, was, you know, your greatest resource are humans. And I mean, not just your team, but your patients, right? And to be able to, if you're going to market, turn one into three. I mean, if you're an elite client, how often do I say turn one into three? Go to families first. And when you look at core values, it's like our core value is chiropractic is healthcare lifestyle. And then where the profession blows it is what's your standard? Well, 80 to 90% of patients have to bring their family. It really should be 100%. If you're a parent and you don't bring your kid, what is it you don't understand? So, and that's the resource. So now, right, your best customer is one that continues to pay you to put on monthlies. That's why what's our goal? Create a 7-figure lifestyle practice where you're making 80 to 100,000 or more. You can go to any level you want with just your monthly payments on your lifestyle people. It's like, and that's what Josiah's doing. It's like, here's the wheel. Here's how you keep purpose-driven team members forever. Here's how you keep families in a lifestyle. Then all you got to do is roll it long enough. Like you had the wheel when you opened, and then you just, after 4 years, all you did was roll the wheel. For now, what you're doing is just rolling the wheel. Now that you have the systems.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I got. It was great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, that's scaling, man. Get the right stuff. Get your purpose, right? Have the right fuel. Have a mission. Get your messaging down, right? Hire great people, but even better, you got to create great people that have purpose, that share and want to build the culture. And then see that, hey, your goal isn't to create a patient, it's to create a legacy. So every person that comes in, they have to bring their family and they have to talk to the people at work, you know, and then people don't realize. I went to this charismatic church on Sundays, first time I ever been there. And so they're doing hands-on healing. So the pastor gets up and he's like, you know, somebody's suffering a migraine, stand up if you have migraines. You know, I sense there's people with left knee pain. And if you have that, and I'm like, oh my God, man, these people need chiropractic. I went to a wedding of a client of mine the day before, and it says the church that he goes to, he got married. And I'm like, this dude's got to talk to the pastor. Like, there's so many needs. How can you not build an overflowing practice? People need you everywhere. And then use Josiah for the numbers, put the cement foundation down, build the frame of the house, put the drywall and the electricity and the plumbing, get all that stuff done. And then you can only end up right in your vision.
Love it.
So
Love it. I don't
that's
know
all
if
I
you.
have to say.
I love it. I love it. I don't know if you got time, Dr. Fred, but I mean, I can stay on for if anybody does have any specific want to do any Q&A.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat or just unmute yourself. If you got any stuff going on, I know we're going to be sending this recording out, and that's where the majority of people are going to be. Questions? Okay, well, how can they get a hold of you, Josiah? Put your info in the chat. It's all
Okay.
over your shirt right there, morelucro.com.
That's right.
We've been staring at it the whole time.
Yep, I'll just put my link in the chat here. That's a link to my calendar. You can click on that link right in the chat, schedule a call with me.
There you go. Schedule a breakthrough call. I would definitely call him. He's also going to be in our Atlanta boot camp. If you haven't been to a day 1 day boot camp in a while, they've evolved so much. Now we actually have it to where the patient is saying on day 1, this is the healthcare lifestyle for my family. And they're already asking you to bring their kids in. So we've evolved to a whole nother level. If you haven't been, give me a call. That's the frame of your house. Use Josiah for the foundation, and let's build an amazing palace where you can contribute to the lives and generations of others.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm excited to be there, excited to be part of the elite coaching family and provide value, guys. Yeah, reach out to me on my schedule. Happy to talk to anybody.
Okay, thanks, guys. Peace. Appreciate you. Love you guys. See you soon.